432 screenshots. I watched as the music stopped dead. That's how many messages I had to read between my fiancée and her lover before I finally understood just how deep the lies went. The church went so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I'd rehearsed this moment 100 times in my head, but nothing prepared me for the weight of 200 people holding their breath at once. Julie was still behind those big wooden doors with her dad, probably fixing her veil one last time. That was Julie for you. Everything had to be perfect. Well, almost everything. Mark. Tom grabbed my arm, his voice barely a whisper. You've got that look. The same one from that night at O'Malley's. That night. 3 weeks ago, I'd walked into O'Malley's bar looking like I'd seen a ghost. Grabbed Tom's phone right out of his hand and showed him what I'd found. Tell me I'm not crazy, I'd said. He took one look and ordered us both a double whiskey. The music started again. The doors opened, and there she was in that white dress she'd spent months choosing. Even now, my heart skipped a beat. Funny how someone so beautiful could tell such ugly lies. She reached the altar, and her dad put her hand in mine. Her fingers were ice cold. Something beeped softly, probably a phone in someone's purse. Julie flinched. Interesting. She'd been jumping at every notification lately, ever since that first photo surfaced. You look amazing, I said quietly. She smiled, but I caught that flicker of fear in her eyes. She wasn't stupid. She knew something was wrong. The priest started his speech. I let him get through the first part, watching Julie fidget with her flowers. Classic Julie tell. She always played with things when she was lying. Like that night at Romano's 3 months ago, when she couldn't keep her hands off her wine glass. I need some time, she'd said then, twirling the stem. Before the wedding. Just a couple weeks. She wouldn't meet my eyes. My college friends are planning this amazing trip to China. It's my last chance to do something like this before I'm married. I believed her. God help me, I believed every word. I even drove her to the airport, watched her meet up with Amy, Lisa, and Rachel at the gate. They were all wearing those matching hoodies Julie had bought them. Best friends forever in pink letters. What a joke that turned out to be. If anyone has any reason these two should not be married, the priest said, speak now or forever hold your peace. Yeah, about that. My voice came out steadier than I felt. I've got a few reasons. I turned to face everyone but kept hold of Julie's hand. Started squeezing it just a little tighter. Let's talk about that spiritual journey to China. Mark, Julie whispered, trying to pull away. I felt her pulse racing through her fingers. What are you doing? Hey Amy, I called out. You remember that meditation retreat in Vancouver? The one you were supposed to be at with Julie? Amy stood up slowly. She looked like she might be sick. I was in Seattle, at my sister's baby shower. She swallowed hard. The one you said you couldn't come to, Julie, because you were too busy with wedding stuff. A murmur ran through the church. Julie's hand was shaking now. This isn't what you think, she started. No. I pulled out my phone, took my time unlocking it. Every eye in the place was glued to my hand. So this isn't you at some fancy rooftop bar in Beijing? I held up the first photo. Julie, in that blue dress I'd bought her for her birthday, laughing with some guy in an expensive suit, his hand on hers. Real cozy. People started whispering. Julie's mom leaned forward, squinting. That could be anyone, Julie said quickly. You can't even see . You're right, that one's not great. Thing is, though. I swiped to the next photo. Hotel security cameras are pretty sharp these days. Crystal clear footage now. Same blue dress. Same guy.
2:37 nachts.
Room 1242 of the China World Summit wing. He's just a business contact, Julie's voice cracked. We were talking about . About what? The 5-star hotel you booked together. Another swipe. Or maybe another swipe. This couple's massage at the resort. Her father stood up so fast his chair fell over. What the hell is going on? Daddy, please. Julie turned to him, mascara starting to run. It's not . Not what, Jules? I kept my voice soft, gentle even. That seemed to scare her more than if I'd yelled. Not the truth? Should we talk about who paid for your flight upgrade? I paused, the champagne at midnight. All on Mr. Way's company card. Julie was trembling now, her perfect makeup starting to crack. Stop it, she whispered. Please. I would have, I said. If it was just a few dinners. A stupid mistake. I pulled out one last paper, letting it catch the light. But then I found this. Mark, don't dash. A passport application. My voice carried to every corner of the church. From last week. In her maiden name. I turned the paper slowly, watching Julie's face. With something interesting attached, proof of $2 million. Wired from an account in the Cayman Islands. Julie's flowers hit the floor with a soft thud. Rose petals scattered across the marble. And that's when we heard it. Footsteps. Sharp. Steady. Getting closer. Coming down the aisle behind us. Julie went absolutely still. The color drained from her face. She knew those footsteps. And from the look in her eyes, she knew exactly what they meant. Those footsteps echoed through the church like a heartbeat. Click, click, click. Julie's grip on my hand had gone from cold to freezing. I could feel her trying to pull away, but I held on. Not out of love anymore, just to make her face what was coming. Mark, she whispered. Please, just let me explain everything. Let her explain. A voice called out from the crowd. Julie's sister Kate stood up, her bridesmaid dress rustling. This is ridiculous. It was just a few meetings. You're ruining everything over some photos and receipts. The footsteps stopped. I finally turned around. There she was, Grace Chin, Julie's old roommate from college. The one person Julie never thought would betray her. Just a few meetings? Grace's voice was steady. Is that what you told everyone, Julie? That you just bumped into him a few times? Julie's face went pale. Grace, don't dash. I was there, Julie. The whole time. Remember? I live in Beijing now. I saw you. Not just at the hotels and restaurants. I saw you at that real estate office. The whispers started up again. Julie's mom leaned forward in her seat. Real estate office? What real estate office? Grace pulled out her phone. The one where Julie and her business contact were looking at properties. 3-bedroom apartments. Family homes. She looked straight at Julie. Wedding Fenwes. No. Julie shook her head frantically. That's not, we were just dash. Just what? I asked quietly. Just planning another wedding? While you were planning ours. The church erupted in chaos. Half the guests were on their feet, some defending Julie, others demanding answers. You can't judge her. Kate was practically screaming now. You have no idea what she's been going through. The pressure of the wedding, the stress dash, the stress of managing 2 relationships? Grace cut in. The stress of lying to everyone? Tell them about the ring, Julie. My heart stopped. What ring? Julie was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. But Grace wasn't stopping. The engagement ring she keeps in her makeup bag, Grace said. The one she takes out when she thinks no one's watching. The one she wears when she's video calling him late at night. That's enough. Julie's father stood up. This is just malicious gossip. My daughter would never dash. Show them the bag, Julie, Grace said softly. The one you brought to the bridal suite. The one you wouldn't let anyone else touch. Julie clutched her bouquet tighter. No. Sarah, I called to her other bridesmaid. Would you mind getting Julie's makeup bag from the bridal suite? Don't you dare. Julie tried to move toward the door, but I still had her hand. This is private. This is dash. Sarah was already heading to the back room. The whole church held its breath. She's under so much pressure, Kate was saying, but her voice had lost its conviction. Everyone makes mistakes. A mistake is a drunken kiss at a party, I said. A mistake is a moment of weakness. This, I looked at Julie. This was calculated. Every step, every lie. Sarah came back, holding a small blue bag. Designer, of course. Probably another gift from him. Open it, Grace said. Sarah's hands were shaking as she unzipped the bag. There, nestled between tubes of lipstick and mascara, was a small velvet box. The kind that holds an engagement ring. Julie finally broke. Fine. Yes, there's a ring. Yes, I love him. Is that what you wanted to hear? She yanked her hand from mine. He understands me. He doesn't try to control me. Doesn't track my every move like you do. Track you? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Julie, I never tracked you. I trusted you. Right up until that first photo showed up. Right up until your own friends couldn't keep lying for you anymore. The church was dead silent now. Everyone watching, waiting. Open the box, Sarah, Grace said quietly.
No.
Julie moved to grab it, but she was too late. Sarah opened the box. Inside was a diamond ring that made Julie's current engagement ring look like costume jewelry. But it wasn't the ring that caught everyone's attention. It was the note tucked underneath. Just a few words, but they changed everything. Read it, I said. Sarah's voice trembled as she read. To my future wife, this time next year, it will be our turn. The bouquet finally slipped from Julie's fingers, roses scattering across the marble floor. And that's when the back doors of the church opened one more time. The church doors opened, and everyone turned to look. My sister Rachel stood there, holding a stack of papers and looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. I'm sorry, she said, walking down the aisle. I tried to get here before the ceremony started, but traffic was horrible. She stopped in front of Julie. I didn't want to believe it when Mark told me, but, well, I think you should explain these. Julie stared at the papers in Rachel's hands. What are those? Receipts, Rachel said. From the jewelry store where I work. You remember, the one where you helped me get a job last year. She turned to me. The same store where Julie's been getting jewelry cleaned every week for the past 3 months. Julie's sister Kate jumped in again. So what? A woman can't take care of her jewelry? Sure she can, Rachel said. But it's weird when she brings in different pieces every time. Expensive pieces. Pieces that aren't from any of our local stores. She looked at Julie. Pieces that someone else bought for her. The whispers started up again. Julie's mom was crying softly now. You don't understand, Julie said, her voice shaking. None of you understand. Mark is... He's so focused on his career, on his plans. He never asks what I want, what I dream about. That's not fair. My mom stood up this time. Mark bought you that art studio you wanted. He supported your photography business. The photography business, Tom interrupted, realization dawning on his face. The business trips. The weekend workshops. He turned to me. Remember when I tried to surprise her at that workshop in Seattle last month? The one that didn't exist. Julie's dad stepped forward. Now wait just a minute. My daughter's worked hard to build her business. She wouldn't. Check her website, Rachel said quietly. The one Mark paid for. Look at the workshop dates. Someone in the crowd already had their phone out. There are no workshops listed, they called out. The whole events page is empty. Because there never were any workshops, I said. Were there, Julie? Those weekends away, those business trips? They were all with him, weren't they? Julie's face crumpled. He believes in my art, she whispered. He sees my potential. He doesn't just throw money at me like you do, hoping I'll stay busy and out of your way. Out of my way? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I got you that studio because you said it was your dream. I built the darkroom myself. The darkroom, Rachel said suddenly. Julie, did you ever actually use it? Because every time I visited, it was locked. You always said you were waiting for special equipment. Stop it, Julie shouted. Just stop. So what if I have someone who appreciates me? Who doesn't treat me like some project he can fix? Fix you? I shook my head. Julie, I never tried to fix you. I loved you. Every part of you. I paused. Even the parts that apparently didn't exist. That's when Julie's best friend Emma stood up. She'd been quiet this whole time, watching everything unfold. Julie, she said softly, tell them about December. Julie went completely still. Emma, don't. But Emma wasn't stopping. Tell them where you really were when you said you were helping me through my breakup. Her voice cracked. Tell them why you let me cry on the phone for hours while you were actually in Paris with him. The church went silent again. Paris, where I'd originally wanted to have our wedding, before Julie insisted on having it here. I needed that time, Julie said weakly. I was confused. I needed to figure things out. Figure what out? Emma's voice was getting stronger. How to keep lying to everyone. How to keep playing both sides. She opened her purse and pulled out a small notebook. You left this at my place last week. Your planning notebook, remember? The one you said was for wedding ideas? Julie lunged for the notebook, but Emma stepped back. Should I read it? She asked. Should I tell everyone about the 2 guest lists you were working on? The 2 seating charts? The 2 sets of vows? The roses from Julie's scattered bouquet were being crushed under feet as people stood up, moved around, chose sides. Some were defending her, others condemning her. Her mom had stopped crying and was just sitting there, staring into space. Her dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. But this story wasn't over. Not even close. Because just then, my phone buzzed with a message. From a number I didn't recognize. With a video attachment. And Julie's face, when she saw me looking at my phone, told me everything I needed to know about what that video might contain. The church doors opened with a creak. My cousin Amy walked in, her face flushed like she'd been running. She was supposed to be Julie's photographer today, supposed to capture all those perfect moments. Instead, she was clutching her laptop, giving me that look she'd given me at Christmas dinner when she'd first noticed something was off with Julie. I wasn't going to do this, Amy said, her voice shaking a little. I kept telling myself it wasn't my business. But after everything I just heard, she looked at Julie. I think they need to see the photos, Jules. Julie's sister Kate jumped up again. More photos? Haven't you people done enough? This is supposed to be a wedding, not a trial. You're right, Amy said quietly. It is supposed to be a wedding. So maybe Julie can explain why she hired me to shoot another one last month. The whispers started up again. Julie's mom grabbed her husband's arm. What is she talking about? Amy opened her laptop. Julie booked me for a practice wedding shoot at the Morton Hotel. Said she wanted some test photos for lighting. She turned the screen around. But this doesn't look like practice to me. The photos showed Julie in another white dress. Not as elaborate as today's, but still a wedding dress. She was standing in a hotel garden, smiling that smile I thought was only for me. But she wasn't alone. That's not. Julie's dad squinted at the screen. That can't be. James. I finished for him. Your business contact. Looks pretty cozy for a practice shoot. It was just for fun. Julie's voice had that high pitch it got when she was lying. We were joking around. The dress was there for a different client, and we thought it would be funny. Funny. Amy scrolled through more photos. Julie and James cutting a cake. Julie and James dancing. Julie and James kissing under an arch of roses. You paid me extra to keep these private. Said they were for a special project. The church was dividing now. Half the guests were shaking their heads, disgusted. The other half were still defending Julie. So she took some photos. Kate was practically crying now. People make mistakes when they're stressed. When they're not sure. Not sure. I looked at Julie. Is that what this was? You weren't sure. Mark, please. Julie reached for my hand, pulled away. You don't understand. James and I, we connected on a different level. He sees me for who I really am. And who is that, exactly? Emma stood up again, still holding that planning notebook. Because the Julie I knew wouldn't plan 2 weddings at once. Wouldn't write 2 sets of vows. She opened the notebook. Want to hear what she wrote for James? You freed me from a life of mediocrity. You showed me what real love feels like. Stop. Julie tried to grab the notebook, but Emma stepped back.
No, Julie.
You don't get to stop this. Not after what you did to me. Emma turned to the crowd. You all remember March? When my dad was in the hospital, her voice cracked. Julie was supposed to be with me. I was falling apart, and she said she was too sick to come. Said she had food poisoning. Emma pulled out her phone. But look what I found on her backup cloud last week. Looks like a pretty miraculous recovery to me. She held up the phone. A video started playing. Julie, looking perfectly healthy, laughing as she and James fed each other sushi at some expensive restaurant. The date stamp showed it was the same night Emma's dad had his heart attack. The silence in the church was deafening. Even Kate had stopped defending her sister. I can't believe this, Julie's mom whispered. My own daughter. Mom, no. Julie turned to her mother, mascara running down her face. You don't understand. None of you understand. Mark was. He was suffocating me with all his plans, his perfect life. Suffocating you? I couldn't help laughing. Julie, I supported every dream you ever had. The photography business, the art studio, the trips to find yourself. I made air quotes with my fingers. I just didn't realize you were finding yourself in someone else's arms. You know what the worst part is? Emma's voice was quiet now. It's not even the lies. It's how much you seem to enjoy telling them. Like it was all some big game to you. Julie was shaking her head, but I could see it in her eyes. The calculations. The next lie forming on her lips. But before she could speak, my phone buzzed again. This time, the message made my blood run cold. Julie, I said, holding up my phone. Want to explain why your business contact just texted me? I held up my phone so Julie could see the message. Her face went from pale to ghost white. What does it say? Her sister Kate's voice wasn't so defensive anymore. Just tired. James says he's sorry about the wedding, I said, keeping my voice steady. Says something about how it'll all be worth it in the end. Interesting timing, don't you think? Julie grabbed for the phone, but I pulled it back. Mark, please, I can explain dash. Like you explained the beach house? The words hung in the air like smoke. Julie froze. What beach house? Her father's voice cracked. He looked older now, sitting in that front pew with his wife crying beside him. I nodded to Tom, who'd been quiet this whole time. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and started passing papers to the front row. Property listings, bank statements, emails. See, while Julie was planning our perfect wedding, I said, she was also planning something else. A beautiful 5-bedroom house in Malibu, ocean view, private beach access. All the things she always said she dreamed about. That's not. Julie's mom picked up one of the papers with shaking hands. These numbers can't be right. $1.2 million, I confirmed, with a down payment of $200,000, made last month. I looked at Julie. From our joint account. The church went so quiet you could hear the air conditioning hum. Jules? Kate barely whispered. Tell me you didn't. I was going to pay it back. Julie's voice echoed off the walls. I wanted. A backup plan? I suggested. Something to fall back on when everything fell apart? That's when Emma stood up again, still holding that planning notebook. The house explains all these numbers, she said, flipping through pages. 2 budgets side by side, one for M and one for J. She looked up at Julie. But the money, it's all coming from Mark's column. I watched Julie's face as it all unraveled. The perfect makeup couldn't hide the panic in her eyes anymore. Remember that fight we had about the wedding budget? I asked her. When I said we were spending too much, you cried. Said I was ruining your dream day, so I gave in. Added another $50,000. And she split it, Emma finished, showing the notebook. Half for this wedding, half for my dream house, Julie whispered. Her dad stood up slowly. Princess, he said, using her childhood nickname. Why? Why go through with this wedding if you were planning to leave? I couldn't help laughing, but there was no joy in it. Tell them, Jules. Tell them about the prenup James wanted you to sign. Julie's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, that perfect white dress spreading around her like spilled milk. 2 days ago, I said to the silent church. James told Julie some interesting news. His business wasn't doing so well. Those big deals he promised? All talk. The fancy lifestyle? Mostly debt. I paused. But my family's company? That's real. And once we were married. Stop, Julie begged. Please stop. The beach house wasn't your escape plan, was it, Julie? It was your consolation prize. When James turned out to be just another smooth talker with empty pockets, you figured you'd at least get something out of all this. Someone in the back of the church laughed. Then someone else. Soon there was a ripple of bitter laughter moving through the pews. All this, Kate said, finally understanding. All these lies, these plans. For what? A house. Not just a house. Julie shot back, sudden anger in her voice. A future. Something that was mine. Do you have any idea what it's like always being the good girl? Always doing what everyone expects. She turned to me. You had everything planned out. Our life, our future. All mapped out in your perfect little schedule. You're right, I said quietly. I did have it all planned out. I pulled one last paper from my pocket. Including this. Julie stared at it. What is that? The deed to a house. In Malibu. 5 bedrooms. Ocean view. I let that sink in. I bought it 6 months ago. Was going to surprise you after the honeymoon. I dropped the paper. It floated down to land next to her crumpled form. Guess we both had plans, huh? The silence in the church was absolute. No more whispers. No more arguments. Just the sound of dreams shattering like glass. The funny thing is, I said, looking around at our families, our friends, all these people who'd come to celebrate love and were instead witnessing its autopsy. I would have given you everything you wanted, Julie. The house, the beach, the dream life. All you had to do was love me back. Really love me. I turned to walk away, but stopped at the end of the aisle. Oh, and Jules? James just sent another message. Says his wife found out about everything. Looks like you lost more than just a wedding today. As I pushed open the heavy church doors, I heard Julie start to cry. Real tears this time. Not the perfect princess tears she'd practiced for the ceremony. Behind me, people were standing, gathering their things, trying to process what they just witnessed. Thank you for listening to the story to the end. Let me know in the comments if you think you would have done the same. It's really important to me. Don't forget to like the story so we know you like it, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our new videos. And the next story will be even more interesting. There's a twist that will definitely surprise you. So turn on your notifications and stay tuned. See you in the next story.